Foundation pay for it, thankfully.
Yes.
I'd like to call to order the workshop of May 20th, 2019. First on our agenda tonight is an executive session to discuss economic development pursuant to 1 MRSA, Section 405. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Fournier, a second from Councilor Walker. All those in favor? Okay, we now see an executive session by a vote of 6-0. Jesus Christ. I now declare us out of executive session. Next on the agenda is another executive session to discuss economic development. Auburn's busy pursuant to 1 MRSA, Section 405. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Titus and a second from Councilor Walker. All those in favor? Opposed? None being? We now are in executive session.
opportunities.
I'm going to be quiet.
And that'll be important for us to see.
The hydro thing.
We're live.
I now declare the council out of executive session. Next item is an update by Derek Belanger on streetlights. Mr. Belanger? And if you could, if we have, I think, a rep as well.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm joined by Mark Carter of Real Term Energy, our consultant for the streetlight conversion project. And he's here to provide an update and the schedule for the upcoming installation. Mark?
Good afternoon, evening. So I have a short presentation to provide an update. Executive summary, and then I'll give an update on the installation overview and the timing and the task, and then I'll open up to any and all discussions. So as part of the turnkey implementation, what's been completed to task to date is the GIS audit, where we go and collect the information on each and every pole. That information gets fed into the photometric design. So we take a look at each light at each street, and we determine what the right wattage, what the right distribution pattern is for that light, and that gets summarized in an investment grade audit with all the firm fixed bidding as well as the timing. So that has been completed. We're now in the procurement phase and the installation phase, and then once that's completed, we'll make a switch over from a billing perspective with Central Maine Power, finalize the commissioning with a commissioning binder, and then do a final measurement and verification. So just a recap of the project. There was 1,245 HID fixtures with an annual energy consumption of about 668 megawatts, and that's projected to be reduced by 65%. And the expected payback period for the project is 4.9 years. And this just gives a baseline and also the after, what is expected from the number of fixtures. Not going to change in this phase, although I do understand that there's going to be additional fixtures that want to be added to the project. There's the consumption reduction. As part of the payments that you've been making for Central Maine Power, there's a maintenance and rental, and that's in the lighting equipment charges, and that's why that's going to go to zero, because once you acquire the fixtures that you own them, that amount of money will go away. And then you see the delivery and supply charges also being reduced by 65%, which would correlate to the 65% reduction in the energy consumption. And then now you will have some maintenance costs, whether it's done internally, but that's a budget number. So the total streetlight expenditures are expected to drop from $222,000 down to $55,000 for a 75% overall cost reduction. And this is showing an example of the current inventory you have, the before, your typical HID or high intensity discharge, high pressure sodium lights, as well as the other type 2 Cobra heads. And these will be the Acuity, ATBS, ATBM series fixtures that will be replaced. And you'll see it's comparable if you've seen the lights over in Lewiston. It is the same manufacturer models. The city also will have a smart control system. So this is an RF-based system where you can communicate and monitor all of the lights in the city. So if you do have outages, you will actually get notified by the controls themselves. You won't have to wait for people to call in or a 311 system to be notified. So this will give you the ability to monitor energy consumptions as well as to control the light intensity output. Very similar to, and I did bring a fixture with me. And this is the actual fixture. This is an Acuity ATBS fixture. So this shows the capability remotely to turn the light on, turn the light off, as well as the capability if you wanted to dim that down from a certain level. Oh, thank you.
It's like that warm ambiance here in Auburn.
Yeah.
We have some candles over there.
So that's the light off. That's the light on, and of course, you do have the ability to increment the output down in percentages down to 1%. So you can see that you could dim that.
So, can you explain why you're on this, the spectrum of the light, and how that actually can be adjusted, or can it be the spectrum versus just the candle watts, if you would, or lumen?
It's the lumen output can be, so when you adjust a driver, and there's the controls have a 0 to 10 volt output on the controls. So these pins actually drive a voltage to the street light where you can actually dim it, but it doesn't change the hue or the color temperature.
That's it, okay.
That's technology that's not currently available. So, but it would be. It's very comparable to. In fact, it is the same color temperature as Lewiston. So you should have a very common look and feel as you go from one municipality to the other.
Council, do you want us to light again on before I turn the lights?
So, were there any other questions regarding the fixtures or the lighting controls?
This is a new light, and my assumption is that you're taking into account light pollution, right? It's downward focused. Is that part of what this new light will address?
It is. So all the lights are full cutoff, so you don't have, every fixture we look at, there's a bug rating, a backlight, uplight, and a glare. So all of the fixtures that we specify are all 100% full cutoff. So it minimizes that per the International Dark Skies Association recommendations.
Thank you. And one other question. Do you know when you will know the schedule?
I do, and I have that as a slide if it would just be upcoming.
And I don't want to take up too much time, but I have a specific actual address.
Okay.
Is there any other questions concerning the lighting at all before we move on to the present? Nothing? Okay, thank you. Continue.
And speaking of the installation, so right now we're in the procurement phase, so the hardware that's being delivered are the fixtures, the smart controls, as well as the fuses. So as part of the PUC mandate that each fixture has to be fused. So that's a demarcation point for ownership from Central Maine Power to the municipality, to the city. So that's being delivered. We'll have the kickoff meeting sometime the week of the 17th. And that's when we'll work with Charlie and his team to manage, which locations need special attention. So anything from police details or special consideration, like up by the Auburn Mall, where you're kind of changing the voltage for some of those lights. So that'll be worked out the week of the 17th. The installers that we're using are On Target Services. They're authorized by Central Maine Power. They also did the lights in Portland, South Portland, Wells, and a bunch of other municipalities. So they're one of the larger contractors that CMP uses for storm restoration work and other items. They're targeted to start on Monday the 24th, and they expect it to take no longer than 5 weeks. So the expected installation completion would be August 2nd. If weather goes well, it could be sooner, but I think that's a realistic date. And they typically don't do work the week of July the 4th, so I have that grayed out. They might be able to get a crew, but generally speaking, they don't work. So we expect that to have, fully completed before the Balloon Festival. And this just goes over the different steps regarding staging, how we load the trucks the night before. We actually detail out with the contractors all the health and safety inspections, as well as anything mandated by the state. And then they plan their installation routes, whether they need flaggers, police details, a traffic management plan, or are there any areas that they need to stay away from particular times of day or times of the month, as well as an environmental management plan, so everything gets recycled with a certificate per state requirements. And then final inspection and sign off. And during the installation phase, they do use an online tool. So this is a tool we created that is, it's an Esri GIS-based system. So as they're installing the lights, you can actually track that on a real-time basis. So this tool gets fed into and shared via the web, but it's put into a installation tracking tool. So this is a website we'll provide the city that they can track. So it'll actually keep track of how many's been installed, how many lights are being installed per day, how many lights are being rewired, any new mast arms. So you can actually track the performance throughout the entire installation process.
And maybe, Mark, just so that everybody's clear, we're going to push that out as well to the public. So that means they can go on the website and be able to see when is their neighborhood going to be getting that work. But it's not just an internal staff review. It'll be out to the public.
Will you be able to tell from this very specific locations? Is it an address? In terms of
Well,
placements of the lights?
the map is expandable, so you can actually drill down into a particular address. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, one question. Will there be any power outages during the installation, or will you be able to put them in and keeping the power on everywhere?
No, they power them live, so there'll be no disruption of power other than the aforementioned lights around the Auburn Mall that I believe are being stepped down in voltage from 480 to 240. So that'll take some electrical work, but
Yeah.
I think city engineers take care of all that.
Terrific, thank you.
Any more? Do you have-
Nope,
No,
that's-
good. Do we have any other questions? I'm glad to see that this website will be pushed out. I think it'll be linked into our auburnGov.gov website? Okay. Any other questions? If not, I think Councilor Lozano, you had a specific, it is past the deadline to submit any requests, though, just saying that.
The lighting? Well, no, I mean, it's been submitted. I just want to let my elder friend know that she will get a new light in her.
Yeah.
Actually-
One other question I did have, Mr. Mayor, and that is, the new lights, are they installed at the same time that we're replacing the old ones?
Yes, so that's important to keep the cost down, is to do one trip
Right.
to the pole. So when the bucket truck goes up and the crew goes up, the first thing they'll do is cut in the new fuse that's required, then they'll remove the old fixture and then install the new fixture all at the same trip. And then they'll move to the next light.
But I'm talking about any ones that aren't there, like we talked about adding lights. Will that be done at the same time, or is that considered a different phase? Because you're talking about a new light that's not there now, correct?
There was one.
Oh, there was one, okay, I have a lot of people asking about lights that we're going to put in that weren't there before.
So adding a new light that wasn't there before, so I'm not sure if this particular light falls into that category, but I believe there was 33 additional lights that the city was looking to add. There is a separate process with Central Maine Power. So when you buy the lights or bought the lights, you bought the mast arm, the fixture, and the grandfathering of the position of that fixture on that pole. So it did not require a CMP to come back out to do any investigation. But if you're adding lights, there is a separate process where you have to provide them the address, the pole numbers, and they'll send out an engineer to make sure that the pole is structurally sound to hold the light. So based on the mast arm length and the weight, they need to actually physically check and to make sure that there's secondary power pulled to that pole. So there is a process, and I believe that's actively being worked on. So if they can complete that in time, we'll tack that on to at the end of this project and just do that seamlessly. But if not, it would probably just take one crew to come back for a day to put up 33 lights.
I was just going to ask, because people are going to ask, when they see the crews go by to replace the existing lights, but they don't put the new ones in, the first thing they're going to say, wait a minute, I thought we had a new light coming. So we got to be able to tell them
gonna
that
get at
it's
least 33
another
phone calls.
phase. Yeah.
Yeah, it does require, and there is some, lag time depending on when CMP can get, an engineer out to look at those
Okay.
poles.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and thanks for keeping Auburn lit. Some of you got that joke.
I got it.
Next on the agenda, Mr. Cousins. Mr. Cousins is going to be talking today about the Upper Barker Hydro proposed study plan. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. Wanted to provide a quick update on the Upper Barker hydro relicensing, but also take the opportunity to just give you an updated information sheet in general on hydropower relicensing in Auburn. Page 2 of your packet after the info sheet is a general update that we've used for a few years now to keep councils up to date. We have a lot of hydropower relicensings coming up over the next 10 or 15 years. The Lower Barker, now the Upper Barker, are both fairly small facilities with limited profits and limited ability to contribute to community needs based on their use of the river to generate power. But the Lower Barker, we've been in the process for a little over 5 years now. We should have a decision in that process over the next couple of months. Upper Barker is set to expire in 2023, and we're already into that licensing process. They typically start about 5 years before the expiration. So I think it's important to keep on your radar screen. Lewiston Falls Monty Hydro is set to expire in 2026, so they will probably start their relicensing in 2020 or 2021, just around the corner. And as well as Gulf Island Deer Rips, those facilities are much larger. And I think it's sort of a good warm-up to be engaged in the Barker process so that the council and staff are familiar with the process, but also we're creating a lot of partnerships with other stakeholder agencies right now through the smaller facility processes, so we can coordinate responses, find consistencies where we are asking for similar things, and support each other through the FERC process. One thing that I would like to note, the existing Gulf Island Deer Rips, the furthest out relicensing, not expiring until 2036, that license already obligates the hydropower owner to build us a boat launch on the Gulf Island project. That would be a boat access to the Riverland State Park. If that's something that the council wants to see happen, that could be done at no cost to the city. We would just have to work on improvements in the East Auburn neighborhood to hopefully make the neighborhood comfortable with additional traffic. But that is a big opportunity from a recreation standpoint if we had a neighborhood that was comfortable with the increase in traffic. So jumping over to the Upper Barker, we were concerned about this when we started the Lower Barker relicensing, that we wouldn't have a decision in the Lower Barker license before they started the Upper Barker relicensing, and we had advocated for combining the two of them for that reason. FERC didn't agree to do that, but right now we find ourselves waiting just another month or so to know what the outcome of the Lower Barker relicensing is while we're being expected to provide comments on the Upper Barker. My intention was to basically to carry forward some of the comments and ideas around recreation that we've used in the Lower Barker, specifically the new Auburn Master Plan, which is part of our comprehensive plan and serves as staff's sort of playbook for policy advice from the council, because it's an adopted document, to advocate for some type of a study to look at what we have for recreational access, which is very, very limited to non-existent in the Upper Barker license area. Boat access or canoe trail put-ins or takeouts had been mentioned in the past. There's really no formal put-in or takeout for canoes or kayaks in that stretch of river. There is some motorized boat activity on that stretch of river. There's a mobile home park off of Washington Street that seems to put a number of boats in there during the summer. We see pontoon boats on that section, and people are using that section of river. It may be an opportunity to extend the Barker Mill Trail over time. There's one large property owner that owns most of the land along the Little Androscoggin River in that section, and they also lease the dam to the hydropower operator, so they're involved in that business arrangement. And my intent was to advocate for a study that could provide us information on what's there, what should be there, or what could be there, as well as what is limiting activity right now. Inland Fisheries and Wildlife has said that they will be advocating for a boat launch in the project area. I don't know if that will be motorized boat launch, like a back-in trailered access, or just carry-in access, but they will be advocating for that. We saw that as an opportunity to sort of complement each other's comments as it would benefit the city as well as inland fisheries and wildlife, and also further the new Auburn Master Plan recreational goal. And the study plan that we have in front of us, and at this step in the process, our comments should be limited to the study plan, although we can start to set up comments for the actual license application that'll be coming within the next 6 months or so. Really doesn't mention anything about recreation, and that's the way the original one was for the Lower Barker. It's to the operator's benefit to sort of minimize that, to hopefully avoid any costs, and it's really the city's obligation, if we see differently, to raise that during the licensing process. So my suggestion is that we really focus on, based on the new Auburn Master Plan, the suggestion that there really should be some kind of a study of recreational opportunities, including access, and we'd like to see that as part of the study plan when they propose their final study plan instead of their preliminary study plan. I'd really like feedback from the council. If I'm on the right track, great, I can put that together, either for the city manager's staff or staff signature, or the mayor's signature, whatever your preference is, and we can make sure that they hear our needs as far as recreation.
Eric, thank you very much for that. Is there any questions, Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to the dam up at Barker Mills Trails, I know there's been side issues with that underground water conduit leaking and them having to shut water off and trying to fix it. They fixed it, but it seems to keep leaking still. How does that interact with our type of recreation? Because I fully support outdoor recreation and what we can do on the water, but what's this going to add to the complication of what we're trying to do?
I know that that was a problem for a number of years. The city had informed them that if they didn't fix it in a certain timeline, that there may be litigation related to that. They did a substantial repair a couple of years ago, but it looked like this winter it may have leaked again. We've passed that on to FERC. FERC got the complaint. I think his name is John Spain out of the New York office, is a safety person for FERC, and they're requiring the license holder to go in, do an inspection, provide a report, and then they'll follow up on that specifically if there still is a leaking. There's some question as to whether the leak this year was snow melt or actually coming out of the ground, but I think they'll be able to get to the bottom of that with the engineers at FERC.
It would be a drag if the city had to keep going in and repair the road, or Auburn Housing, if it keeps coming up through the banking into the parking lot. One of the older tenants may fall, and I think the city has sent Public Works there 2 or 3 times to dig up the ice that's gone across the driveway.
We have, and we certainly don't want that to continue to be a problem. I think we're on a path, though, to get it corrected if there is still an issue. The engineers should be able to figure that out.
Thank you.
Councilor Zania?
How much impact does it have submitting the new Auburn Master Plan? I mean, if they see that there's been planning around recreation for a long time, does that help sway them to realize how important it is?
I think it does help sway them to realize how important it is. It also gives the other agencies a way to look at what Auburn has already said is important to them as they submit their own comments. I've been really surprised for such a small facility, and some other agencies have commented on that. The Androscoggin Land Trust has been a partner. We received a National Park Service grant a number of years ago for a staff person from the Park Service to work on recreation, and specifically the Barker Mill Trail. So this little project, the applicant was really surprised to see the New England Regional representative from the National Park Service engaged at every meeting, and we've built those partnerships by sharing information like the plans, and I think that we should submit it. It does show that we're not just here making up things that we want because there might be a way to pay for them. It shows our commitment, so I think it does help a lot.
Any other questions? Councilor Fournier?
That individual that you mentioned, is that individual still employed under those grants, that grant?
They are not currently. There might be another round of that Park Service grant, though.
That was going to be my next question, if we could do that.
There's not currently, but I know Androscoggin Land Trust will be involved in that if there is an opportunity.
That's good, and I think this is a relatively inexpensive project in terms of everything is there, the land is there. You know, I think if we can fold that up into our master plan in terms of having, you know, tourism meaning this would be something totally different, but still part of that major plan. I think it would be wonderful for people, I really would. I think the other thing is that, just a word of caution, I know when you have boat launches, that kind of thing, you can have some other issues with that. So I would urge, you know, planning ahead in terms of cleanliness, not having dogs leave certain things around, you know, that kind of thing, so that we keep it clean and green.
Dogs swim too, you know.
Yeah,
Swim very
yeah, I
well.
know. I have my puppy.
Okay. Any other final comments? Councilor Titus?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going back and jogging my memory, looking at some emails in the past. But what you're saying is that they're not interested in writing recreational purposes into this FERC license right now.
They have not proposed any type of recreational study, and the study would be used to inform their eventual application.
So we did one water release, time release study back a couple of years ago, and I don't know if we were supposed to do more than one. Did we do any more to kind of get an idea of how that could be utilized for the whitewater?
As part of the Lower Barker licensing, they were required by FERC, because the city and American Whitewater had pushed for it. They were required by FERC to do a whitewater study.
They did one, but they were going to do only one? They didn't do any others?
They did a study at 3 or 4 different flows. They adjusted the flow levels throughout a couple of day period, and had boaters going down the river and grading the level of waves, whether or not they were good for recreation. The final license doesn't look like it's going to require any kind of an annual flow, like days where we schedule certain flows for events. But there are periods every spring that the water levels are at the prime whitewater boating levels, and we could try to schedule some events around that during the spring runoff.
Yeah, and at the time, we were also talking about getting all the stakeholders involved, Parks and Recreation, Advisory Committee, Conservation, everybody that has a stake there to, you know, offer testimony or offer something to make the point that recreation was important. And not that we were going to do something tomorrow, but we didn't want to write a 5-year, 10-year, well, it's a 30-year, isn't it?
Could be 30 to 50-year
30-year
license.
license that will not allow for recreation once it's written. And we want to at least get something in there as a placeholder or something. You don't think that's going to happen?
So we went to the Conservation Commission. I don't know if we went to Parks and Recreation Board, I'd have to check. But we did go to those boards as the council asked for them through the process. We've advocated for the things that the city council has asked for.
So they didn't give you a report back, though, that you could use to help with, for ammunition? I guess that's what I was hoping for.
We used their feedback to form our comments throughout the process.
Okay.
And their comments have swayed FERC on some things and not swayed FERC on other things. We'll know for sure how much of an impact we had on it sometime in June when they make their final license decision.
I'm just concerned because I know that when this was first introduced, we knew it was going to be a really hard uphill battle to get this in, but it was our one shot in 30 years, and if we fail at it, it'll be kind of a miserable failure. So.
And we'll have the same thing on the Upper Barker and
That's what I
same
mean,
thing
yeah,
on the
yeah.
Androscoggin.
So,
So I think it's important that we provide these comments and hopefully influence FERC.
Eric, why don't you, I think, based upon a majority comments here, why don't we write it up, obviously, internally in your staff, talking about recreation, the comments. We could provide it to the city manager and as well as carbon copy to the council too, before execution. I think that'd be great. Obviously, we know time is of the essence.
Great.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good day. At this point, we have 15 minutes to our regular scheduled meeting. Without putting Mrs. Gay on the spot from Healthy Androscoggin, I'm not sure how long your presentation is, but an efficient utilization of time is always good. If it's okay, and this is on you, if you have 10 minutes now, give us a 5-minute break, and then you can continue if there's more time needed during our regular meeting. Are you fine with that? Or would you like to wait till later? Oh, come on, no, you make the decision.
Do you guys need an activity break? Stretch your legs?
You know, why don't you come up and let's give it a go. Unlike you might have time to go home for dinner tonight, so. Unlike us, rather.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. My name's Erin Gay. I'm the director of Healthy Androscoggin. We are a community health nonprofit that's located in Lewiston. We serve Androscoggin County. We're affiliated with Central Maine Healthcare, and they've been a big supporter of us for many years. And they also support us partnering with all hospitals in the region, as well as many partners, to make sure that we're improving the health of our whole community. So I wanted to go through a few things tonight. First, I wanted to orient you to the work that we do. I wanted to give you a snapshot of the top health needs of our community, and also list a few ways that we might be able to be helpful to all of you.
Erin, you can go ahead and click through, and I'll just go ahead and advance.
So here's our vision and our mission. I'm not going to read it to you. But basically, the work that we do is public health focused. So we focus on whole communities rather than individual folks like healthcare does. And we also focus on prevention. And basically, we're not about preaching to the community. We all basically know how to be healthy. Everybody knows how to form a healthy meal. But what we're about is really trying to make the healthy choice the easy choice. So we're trying to create communities that are supportive of making healthy choices, as well as doing basic education. So you may not know that what determines health is actually only 20% clinical care. So everybody thinks about their doctor or their health insurance being what really impacts your health, but actually there's all these factors which have a bigger impact on your health, and we work in all of the other areas. So for instance, we do educate on healthy behaviors like healthy eating, and we talk to kids about how to be tobacco-free, but we also know that having safe housing is really important to determining how healthy we are as a community, or socioeconomic factors like if you have a job so you can put healthy food on the table. So we are working in all of these different areas, and I wanted to show you this because I think all of you actually have quite a large role in the health of our community and all the things that you're talking about. I was flipping through your agenda today and talking about recreation as part of creating a healthy community, talking about adult use marijuana ordinance is part of a healthy community. So thank you for all the work that you do, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to work together. So we really work with 5 main goals: tobacco prevention, substance use prevention, lead poisoning prevention, and then we promote healthy eating and physical activity. So I wanted to highlight a couple of projects that we've worked on specifically here in Auburn. And this first one was the brainchild of my colleague Corey Brown, who's sitting behind me. And she had a request from the athletic director at Edward Little. And he was putting into place the standard student contract for if you do an extracurricular activity, you have to say that you're going to be drug and alcohol free. Well, students sign that all the time, but don't necessarily abide by that. So he was looking for a way to sort of expand that and provide a little education to the students at the same time. So what Corey came up with was she used evidence-informed practices to come up with a curriculum for EL students, anybody doing extracurricular, so you can see band, et cetera, et cetera. And those students participated in sessions to sort of explore what they value. And so instead of just wagging a finger at them and saying, hey, don't do drugs, which we know from the 1980s doesn't work, the students were allowed to sort of explore what they value and what their goals are, and sort of have time to reflect on tobacco and alcohol use at the same time as being informed about some of the basic laws. So this data is from about 9 months ago. We had educated 245 students at that point, and 81% of them said that after the course they could identify very well the steps they should take to make decisions that protect what they value. Another example is the policy work that we do. So I talked about education before and how really that only takes you so far in creating a healthy community. A lot of the work that we do is policy and systems change based. So a good example of that would be, again, shout out to my friend Corey in the back, who worked with the marijuana group here in town to come up with the adult use marijuana ordinance that is before you tonight. That's an example of where if we can create a policy that helps business, but then also thinks about how youth might be impacted by some of those activities in town, then that's the best case scenario for everybody. Another example is that we provide policy development for local childcares and school and after-school programs to make sure that kids have access to healthy nutrition and physical activity opportunities right from the start so that they have a healthy start. This is some of the data that I wanted to show you from our county. What happened was that all of the hospitals in Maine got together and co-funded a study of Mainers' health, and we used quantitative data from a number of health surveys, and then locally we held some forums to collect information from locals to say, okay, here's the data on our top health needs, but what are you seeing in your own life? And then at those forums we prioritized those health needs and came up with these rankings. So you can see social determinants of health is number 1, and I'll talk about that in a second. Mental health, substance use, access to care, and tobacco use were the top for this county. I did bring a couple of reports in case you're interested, as well as a Lewis and Auburn health profile, which I can share with you, and then you can find more information at this website.
Do you have them separated by municipality? Or do you bundle everything?
Lewis and Auburn's bundled because there's not enough power in the statistics to separate the data into the two cities, although the school districts do have some data for each school district that's separated.
Thank you.
Good question. So what is the social determinants of health? That's a little bit of a confusing term, and there's a definition here, but basically it's the condition that allows you to be healthy. So it goes back to the slide back here that I talked about, all these different factors outside of clinical care that impact our health. Some good examples would be like transportation. Do you have the ability to get to your healthcare provider? Can you access a grocery store? Can you get to work? Those sorts of things. And so I just wanted to point out that you all have a large impact on the social determinants of health for the city of Auburn. So I encourage you to think about this slide as you're making decisions and thinking about how the policies and decisions that you're making might be impacting somebody's health down the line. And also know that you can reach out to Healthy Androscoggin if you have questions about that. And we can do some research for you to see how certain policies have worked in other communities, like we did for the marijuana ordinance. Here are a couple of examples about how you're already impacting the health of Auburn residents. One example is the lead hazard control grant that the city of Lewiston and Auburn share, and that's doing lead abatement work in a number of units that's creating healthier housing. You may know that Auburn has the second highest lead poisoning rate in the state, and so that's an important effort to continue. Secondly, I already talked about that marijuana ordinance at length, so I'll skip that. But then third, I know right now the Auburn Recreation Advisory Committee is considering a tobacco-free recreation policy. So that would be kids who are on a softball field, for instance, would be protected from somebody using tobacco or vaping or a marijuana product because breathing smoke-free air is really important to the health of everybody. So a few examples of how we can help you. I'm excited to announce that Healthy Androscoggin recently received a national award from NCHH, it's National Center for Healthy Housing. We're one of 8 to 10 communities across the country who are going to be receiving technical assistance on best practices for lead poisoning prevention policies. So we're going to receive coaching from folks who are experts across the country. We're going to go down to Washington, D.C. for a couple of meetings. And we'd love to bring back those lessons learned back to you to help inform you about what you might be able to do for that issue in particular. We're also interestingly going to be given a return on investment calculation for certain lead poisoning prevention policies. So I'm also happy to bring that back to you as well. Other policy development, we've already talked about that, and public health research expertise. We're happy to do some research for you as you are doing your business every day. And then maybe what I didn't touch on before is we're almost completely grant funded. And we have a great team of grant writers in-house, and we've got a particular knack for identifying the top health needs that we hear in the community, both from data and from our partners, convening people, coming up with good ideas for how to address those health issues, and then bringing in new grant dollars into this community to help solve the issues. So I'm really proud of our team for that. This is our advisory board and our staff over at the Falls. My contact information is here. I brought copies of our annual report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
So thank you very much. One question. Auburn with the second highest lead, was it poisoning or?
Childhood lead poisoning rate in the state.
I've never heard that stat before with Auburn, actually. Love to get some background on that. And I take it Auburn is separate from Lewiston on this one?
That's right.
We hear a lot
Lewiston's-
about it from Lewiston, and, you know, it's never, in my year and a half here, percolated to the surface. It's an ongoing issue. We have grants and so forth, but I've never seen it in crisis form before. So I'd be curious to see that stat.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the reasons we've got such a high rate is because of our old, tired housing stock that's in need of renovation.
No, I understand that. There's a lot of communities in Maine with the same thing, but I've never heard us being number 2. And maybe Lewiston publicizes it more so than us. I'm not sure, but we've talked about this before in policymaking. So again, more stats would be great, I think, on that. Any other questions? Councilor Fournier?
Quickly, last year I attended a workshop at the Lewiston Library, and it was for landlords having to do with lead poisoning. Was your agency involved in that at all?
If we're speaking about the same event, we have an Environmental Protection Agency grant to bring landlords and city staff and others together to talk about some of our lead issues in Lewiston and with housing. And our 2 staff members that are working on that, including Councilor Lasagna, are pulling together some work groups to identify some priorities that everybody can get on board with. So one of those things that's come up, for example, is a portal to have information for landlords and tenants about how to keep your housing healthy, including example lease language or how to access grant resources to abate for lead, things like that.
I found that the interchange going on at that time was extremely healthy and very productive, so I would recommend if it comes to Auburn that we would do something similar like that, so that they have the opportunity to be there and to interact as well as receive the information. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mrs. Gay? Councilor Titus?
Just a comment, and I made this before a couple of years ago, and I know I can't change it with a comment, but one of the issues I think we have with lead is that if somebody wants a grant or needs help with lead abatement, they have to bring everything else up to code. So we go in and we visit a building, yeah, you have some lead issues, but you also got to spend $200,000 and fix all these other problems, and then we might help you with your lead.
Yeah.
So what that's done is it's caused a lot of landlords to say, last thing I want is to have somebody come over here, and so we don't seem to be able to solve the problem because of that roadblock. I wish there was some way, and I know it just goes against the grain of any policymakers, and it does me too, but we're poisoning children and we're not letting it happen, but it's becoming harder to fix because we have to get through this other roadblock.
Well, maybe not policymakers. Policymakers think broadly, but I would say if I could just adjust that to people that implement, thank you.
Yeah.
Implement the policy. Because you're right, I've heard that numerous times about not just, lead grants,
And
but
it's not
grants
your-
in
yeah,
general. I
right.
mean, so I think that's a good, and I'm not sure if there's federal guidelines on the administration of those monies that are stipulating the additional steps, or if that's city. I think it's worthwhile to look and dig deeper to find out where that's originating from. Good intents can sometimes go awry.
Yes.
So, good point. Any other questions? If not, and please, I know you're obviously in the middle of a big grant and exercising that. Let us know when you can come back, maybe in the fall or whenever the time is best for you. I'd love to get an update.
We'd love
Okay?
to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all the good work you and your staff do.
Thank you very much.
Seven o'clock, right on the nose. Okay, so folks, what we're going to do right now is I'm going to call the meeting to order. We're going to take a short break after the Pledge of Allegiance, 5 minutes, stretch our legs, get some water, and come back. Fair enough? Good? Good. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to call this meeting to order for May 20th, 2019. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you could please stay standing. I'd like to call a moment of silence at this point. I just found out that this weekend, former City Councilor Raymond Barabee passed away. He was Ward 5 representative from 2008 to 2011. He was active for years prior to that, too, and after, in Auburn government and volunteerism. So if we could just take a moment here. He's also a pretty good New Auburn resident. I'm sure Leroy served and remembered him well. Thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to place the council on a 5-minute break, and we'll reconvene this meeting at 7:06. Call the city council meeting back to order. I'm going to move, we have been moving certain things around the agenda already, so I'm going to just make a couple slight modifications. I'd like to call right now Jody Durisco, Executive Assistant to the City Manager, up to give us an update on the Memorial Day Parade on May 27th at 10 a.m.
Yes, I would love to do that. Thank you for having me tonight. The celebration for the Memorial Day Parade will begin on Sunday, May 26th at 9 a.m., beginning with a Civil War encampment and living history event put on by Company A of the 3rd Maine Regiment Volunteer Infantry. It will take place in Moulton Park, and the demonstrations will continue through Monday till 2. The celebration will also include our first annual Art in the Park on Memorial Day, Monday, May 27th, from 9 to 4. That will take place in Edward Little Park, which is right by Community Little Theater. It will feature over 20 artists and be comprised of fine art, a juried art show, a farmer's market, and food trucks. The signature event, of course, is the Memorial Day Parade, which will step off at 10 a.m. on Memorial Day. A ceremony will be held by the LA Veteran Council, that will take place in Veterans Memorial Park in Lewiston immediately following the parade. The parade route will begin on Mill Street, proceed on to Main Street, turn left onto Court, right onto Turner, another right into Great Falls Plaza, follow the Great Falls Plaza loop, take a left onto the Longley Bridge, and end at the intersection of Main and Lincoln Street in Lewiston. We recently announced Todd DeGrossier, retired Maine Colonel, as our parade Grand Marshal. He is an Auburn native and served the United States Marine Corps for over 30 years, and his military decorations include the Silver Star Medal, 2 Bronze Stars medals, both with Valor devices, 2 Purple Heart medals, 2 Meritorious Service medals, 3 Navy and Marine Corps Achievement medals, the Military Outstanding Volunteer Service Medal, and the Combat Action Ribbon. So I would say it's well-deserved. Without giving too many spoilers, the parade includes over 70 registered units, and we're still gaining more interest and more participants every day. Units include Honor Guards, veterans, the National Guard, American Legion Post 153, the Auburn School Department, Boys and Girl Scout troops, multiple Corps units, special floats from nonprofits and commercial businesses within the community, our combined marching band called the Roar of the Androscoggin, antique cars, mini horses, music, and much, much more. I want to thank the community for their overwhelming support of this event. It's heartwarming for me to see everyone come together and honor America's heroes and the city's 150th anniversary in a truly spectacular way. We hope everyone comes out to join us for the biggest and best Memorial Day Parade in Maine to celebrate America's heroes. Make sure you watch for our mystery float with a special statewide announcement. For more information on event specifics and a parade map and more, visit www.auburn150.com. And we have conveniently placed some posters that can be posted throughout the city, and we would greatly appreciate your help posting them.
Jody, thank you. First of all, big round of applause to Jody here. She must be working at least 40 hours a week in addition to her full-time job on this. And as I like to say, she's making my lie come into a reality, because I think 2 months ago I said it's the largest Memorial Day parade in the state. Now it looks like it's the largest parade in 2019, period, in the state of Maine. So that is, I remember back in the days, and Councilor Fournier is the chair of this committee, we were hoping for 30. We thought that was a stretch.
All of a sudden, we went at the peak of that mountain, and I think it was the advertisement on TV that really reminded people that, oh, God, I got to get that paperwork in. And then we did some follow-ups. in terms of calling back a few and seeing a few to say, hey, we haven't gotten your paper. Oh, yeah, we're coming. So I think we're going to get a lot more the next few days, too. I agree.
I agree.
So-
We're also started to take phone calls with people asking where the route went so they know where to put their chair to watch the parade. So I think,
That's a
I
good
hope
sign.
that means there will be
Chairs the night before.
thousands
Good
of people
sign.
lining the streets.
I mean, we're shooting, just so everybody at home knows and so forth in the council, we think that we can get 15 to 20,000 people lining the streets of Auburn, from New Auburn all the way down to Veterans Park in Lewiston, actually. That is something that would be momentous for this community. Would send a message and get people from around central and southern Maine to Auburn to see what our civic pride looks like. So that's awesome. I'm pretty excited about everything. And Colonel DeGrosier, I'm not sure how many of you know who Colonel DeGrosier is or what he does now as the CEO of Project Healing Waters with operations here in Maine, but teaching and helping wounded warriors learn how to fly fish to help them get through some challenges in their life is a noble, noble endeavor. So we're lucky to have him come back. His mom and dad, Ed and Sheila, are longtime Auburn supporters and residents, and I'm sure they're pretty happy to get an excuse to get their son home. So Jody, thank you. Thank you very much for everything you
Thank
do.
you.
And everybody in the audience, you just can't come and complain. You have to grab a poster and put it up. So put it on your car, drive around town. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Jody. She's the parade queen. She has a lot of experience.
Do I get a sash and a crown?
Parade queen.
I think we broke the budget, but we'll try. Next on the list, we have, actually, a proclamation I'd like to read off. This is great, actually. So if I could, please, do we have anybody here from the Arbor Day Foundation or Conservation Committee? No? Okay. Where?
Conservation.
Conservation Commission?
Swear myself in, yeah.
Well, there you go. Congratulations. So we're right here for you. This is going to have some relativity to you. So, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And this holiday, called Arbor Day, was the first observed with the planting of 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas on May 19th to May 24th, 2019 is Maine Arbor Week. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, and provide life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore, I, Jason Levesque, Mayor of the City of Auburn, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim May 19th to May 24th, 2019 as a celebration of Maine Arbor Week in the City of Auburn. And I urge all citizens to celebrate Maine Arbor Week and support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. Further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Auburn, Maine, to be affixed this 20th day of May, 2019. So the takeaway is, go out and plant a tree. And I want to applaud, you're new to the Conservation Committee, but the Forestry Subcommittee has done tremendous work utilizing appropriate grants and thousands of volunteer hours inventorying forest land here in Auburn. And putting it online for everybody to see and understand some of the species we have, the age, size, and location. So I thank all the hard work the Conservation Committee and the Forestry Subcommittee has done, and for everybody out there in Auburn who has or will be planting some trees to help beautify and clean our environment. So thank you.
You going to get a photograph holding the...
We can get a photograph.
Yes.
You want to get a photograph? Are you going to accept this on behalf of the Conservation Committee? Sure. Okay.
You have 15 seconds of fame.
We'll drag it out to 20. Gotta go front. Oh, you're brand new. So you're like first day on the job. Yeah, we ran out of budget for frames.
Scrapbook.
That's right. A little jet lag for my trip today. Okay. Next up, communication, Liberty Festival special event mass gathering request. I believe we have someone here from the Liberty Festival.
No, this is just a communication. We'll be voting at the next meeting.
So this item has been placed on the agenda under communications in accordance to Auburn's mass gathering ordinance. A public hearing will be held at the next regular council meeting and will go before the city council for approval on June 3rd. So that's for the Liberty Festival around the 4th of July. Okay, that's it. And we're going to move into the first open session.
Mr. Mayor, did we approve the minutes?
Yeah, we can, actually. Okay, hold on one second. Bear with me, I was supposed to be in Kansas City, but tornadoes ruined that trip. Okay, minutes. We have the minutes of the May 6, 2019 regular council meeting. Are there any corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the May 6, 2019 regular city council meeting.
So
Motion
moved.
to approve.
I have a
Second.
motion by Councilor Walker and a second by Councilor Lasagna. By a vote of show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Next, we have the minutes of the May 13th, 2019 special council meeting. Are there any corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the May 13th, 2019 special city council meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Walker, a second from Councilor Young. All those in favor? Okay, minutes are approved. Now we're going to the first open session of the night. Thank you, Councilor Young, for correcting me on that. Now, members of the public are invited to speak to the council about any issue directly related to city business which is not on this agenda. I would ask that you state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody for a public comment?
Good evening. My name is Sam Bost. I live on 7 Moore Street in Auburn. I'm here today to talk a bit about recycling in reference to the workshop that happened last week. Probably is.
I'm sorry. Just
Yeah.
that actually is a topic on the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
Yep.
you'll have there'll be public hearing for that.
Great.
That's
Thank
okay. No, but thank you. So hold those thoughts.
Come back.
Is there any comment or anybody from the public that would like to speak about something that is not on tonight's agenda? Hi, Mamie.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors, Mr. Manager. I'm Mamie Boyne. I'm the director of the Auburn Public Library, and I'm here tonight to invite people to partake in our annual online auction. It will start May 29th and will run through June 8th, and we have a number of different items this year. Last year, we raised just under $9,000, and we hope to top that this year. So if you want any details right now, you can go to our website and you will see an auction preview, but we hope that everybody will join in and bid early and bid often. Thank you.
Your website again, Mamie?
Pardon me?
Could you, just your website, your URL?
Website is www.auburnpubliclibrary.org.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe we're still accepting any offers for sponsorship, that's monetary sponsorship, and also donations of items or, activities, that kind of thing. We have a while to
Yes, it's
still
getting very
accept them.
close, but we can do that. We have 3 levels of sponsorship this year: silver, bronze, silver, and gold. And so we'd like to get as many sponsors as we can, so we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public who would like to speak? None being, I'll now close the first public session. We have no unfinished business tonight. New business. We have a resolve to support the formation of a recycling committee. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved. Second.
Second, yep.
I have a motion from Councilor Gary and a second from Councilor Lasagna. I'm going to open this up to the public for comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? That's you. Sometimes you just got to wait a minute.
Not checking the agenda more carefully.
That's okay. It's a learning process for me too.
All right, so once again, my name is Sam Boss. I live on 7 Moore Street in Auburn, and I'm actually, as you know, I'm here to comment on recycling. I have some thoughts of my own to share, but I'm also sharing a letter on behalf of a colleague, Camille Parrish, who lives at 42 Lake Street in Auburn. She's commented to this council before many times, I believe. But she has some thoughts. She's a member of the Environmental Studies faculty at Bates, and I think her expertise on this matter has a lot to offer us. So the text of Camille's letter reads as follows, and I'm going to go quick to get it in the 3 minutes. But Thank you for your investment in time and effort on behalf of Auburn. I was happy to see the express commitment to environmental issues at the last City Council workshop. This commitment can and should take multiple forms, and I hope your recent discussion will lead to more conversations about actions the city can take. I want to provide some additional information on items that arose during the last City Council workshop for your consideration. With regards to the question about the main hierarchy for solid waste, it is the following in order of preferred method. 1, reduce, reuse, and recycle. 2, compost. 3, processing and beneficial use. 4, waste energy. And 5, landfill. Secondly, there was no clear distinction made on Monday between trash and materials suitable for recycling. All materials that are incinerated in the waste-to-energy plant are destroyed forever, except metals. Materials that are recycled are reused to produce secondary products that we use and benefit from. Recycling does not require us to use our virgin, limited natural resources to produce goods. Thus, recycling creates a benefit for both the consumer and the environment. Thirdly, waste-to-energy is not simply a process that burns trash, emits water vapor, and reduces trash volume by 90%. Pollutants that are hazardous to human health, such as dioxin and cadmium, are produced when burning trash. These toxins are captured in the air pollution control system. For the Mid-Maine waste incinerator, the system requires 2.5 million pounds of lime per year to neutralize acid gases, as well as lots of activated carbon to remove mercury and dioxin, and 800 filter bags to capture particles. And I'll share the text of this so that you guys have those citations. The lime waste, used carbon, and residue from the filter bags must then be handled in a way that is safe and that will permanently isolate or destroy the toxic elements captured by them. This creation of toxins from packaging and products is one reason recycling is recommended as a precursor before solid waste is incinerated. If you want to truly evaluate the greenhouse gas emissions from trash disposal and recycling, you must do a life cycle analysis. Life cycle analyses look at the emissions involved in the extraction and production of materials used in the components and processes of incineration and recycling plants, and the total energy required from start to finish, from extraction all the way through to processing, recycling, etc. These data would provide a good estimation of the true cost of these practices in terms of material, energy use, and emissions. Anything less is not fully recognizing the environmental and financial impacts. Recycling is a habit and behavior that is learned. Achieving these habits relies on sustained education and practice, not one-time leaflets or a newspaper article. Developing and sustaining an educational program over time is key, and it can shine a light on people's achievements that provides positive feedback and results. So continuing our recycling program uninterrupted is crucial. Once recycling is suspended, recycling habits are forever forced to change, and it is hard to learn behaviors once they are lost. So I'm going to take a moment here to just offer my thoughts quickly. My position at Bates College is as the Assistant Director of Community Engaged Learning and Research. And we actually have a lot of resources that we can offer to help the City of Auburn. We have great relationships with city staff. We've worked closely with a number of folks in the city before. We can offer support with educational campaigns. We can offer research, doing those life cycle analyses. There are a lot of things that we can contribute and get young people involved and see what the City of Auburn has to offer. And to that point, I would say that, you know, it's a great way to connect with the young people, to get them involved in the recycling program and the research on it. I would say, by contrast, if we suspend the program, if we terminate it, it sends exactly the wrong message about what the City of Auburn is about. You know, we want to be taking steps forward. It's right in our motto. You know, to me, if in this time of climate change and plastic contamination in the oceans, we say we're suspending recycling, that signals to young people, we're not thinking of your future. So, you know, as a young member of this community, I'm really urging you to think about that and do not suspend the recycling program, even temporarily. Thank you.
You're not that young. I'm just joking with you. You're young. No, just real quick,
Yes,
a little just clarification. Right now, the resolve, and this is, I think, important for everyone, so thank you for bringing this up. The resolve talks about forming a committee on recycling. The resolve itself does not talk about suspending recycling. It just talks about the formation of a committee. So just to make it clear what resolve is on the table for folks, in case they didn't have a chance to read it online. So it's about forming a committee. The second question would be, would you be interested in serving on a committee in either your capacity as a member of the Conservation Committee or in your professional capacity?
Certainly, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And please just come right up.
My name is Silvermore Lehman. I live at 15 Forest Avenue in Auburn. If folks think that recycling is an issue which is not of interest, I have a personal anecdote to offer. Bonnie Washuk from the local paper came to interview me after I sent her an email regarding an article she had, and I cannot begin to tell you how many people have greeted me saying, well, it's the super recycler. So that was a label she gave me. I did not give it to myself, but it is alive and well out there. People are talking about it, they're concerned about it, and I think more than anything, I would have to say that they're confused about it. That even if you try as hard as you can to recycle correctly, and the Auburn staff has been very, very helpful. This is in no way a derogatory comment about them. But even if you call the Public Works, very often they can't tell you what exactly you do with a particular item that you do not want to throw in the trash. So my reason for being here tonight is to urge you to pass the resolve to set up a committee on recycling, and to say that with the grandeur of my title, I would be wonderfully complimented if I could serve on said committee. Thank you.
Thank you for volunteering. And that was a great article, by the way. Thank you for doing what you do. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to speak? None? Yes, please.
Good evening, councilors and Mayor Levesque. My name is Chrissy Adamowitz, and I am the Sustainable Maine Outreach Coordinator for the Natural Resources Council of Maine. We are a nonprofit organization working to protect Maine's environment and have more than 25,000 members and supporters. Thank you for providing this opportunity for comment. NRCM urges Auburn to keep its recycling program and to pass the resolve. We recognize the challenges municipalities face with changing costs to recycling programs, and it's unfair that they should have to choose between their most valuable asset, Maine's environment, and their bottom line. NRCM is working to keep municipalities, to help municipalities by educating legislators in Augusta to vote in favor of a resolve, LD 1431, that would create a sustainable funding stream for municipal recycling programs. The majority of Maine towns are responding to changing recycling markets by making adjustments that we encourage Auburn to consider, including boosting education, storing recyclables that can't be sold in the short term, switching to sorted versus zero sort, offering satellite drop-off locations, and reducing the sources of unnecessary contamination like plastic bags. Recycling is a city service that is not only popular among Mainers, but it is also a commitment to environmental protection that is increasingly expected by residents. If Auburn cuts its recycling program, the city could stand out as the first major municipality in the state to do so. Recycling is a key component of our responsibility to reduce waste and protect the environment. Recycling relieves pressure on natural resources, saves energy, and helps keep valuable materials out of landfills and incinerators in the environment. For example, recycling 1 ton of aluminum saves 39.6 barrels of oil, and recycling 1 ton of plastic saves 30 cubic yards of landfill space. By recycling, Auburn can greatly reduce its impact on the environment by saving the embodied energy, water, and soil that went into making that product. That is why recycling is higher on the Maine Department of Environmental Protection's waste hierarchy than landfilling and waste-to-energy facilities. NRCM is confident that the markets for recycling will improve as the world adjusts to changes that are occurring. The market has always fluctuated, and opting to halt the city's recycling program will make it more difficult to start back up again. Auburn will be in a better position if it keeps its program open and works collaboratively with residents and vendors to make adjustments as needed so that when conditions rebound, residents have the knowledge and skills not only to use the recycling program, but to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak?
Good evening. My name's Jan Phillips, and I live on West Shore Road. And for once, I'm here to commend you. I sometimes come to public meetings and take you to task, but tonight I want to say this is a great resolution. I hope you will pass it. But I also want to say that I'm here in a sense for the multiplied number of folks. I know that early in my life as an adult, I heard a politician say to me, every time we hear from one person, we multiply that by a factor of fill in the blank. Well, I'm the multiplier effect. And so what I want to say to you is, in addition to passing the resolve, I hope that you will charge that commission or that committee to do their research. I know that's the thought. The article in the paper the other day gives us some good suggestions for practices that are now coming on the map as China has pulled out, places that the U.S. is developing technology to deal with recycling ourselves. I hope you will give them a charge to think about education and, how to get the word out, marketing. I hope you will give them a charge to think about how we can get more and more people involved. And I hope, in spite of the fact that the resolve is narrowly defined, that we will keep the recycling going during the formation and the research of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public at this point? If not, I'm going to bring it back to the council for our conversation. No? Okay. Okay, council, it's coming back to us. Just to kind of, I'm going to actually read the resolve. Probably more benefit for the people at home than the council, because I know you have it in front of you. So the resolve is 06-05202019. Resolved that the City Council hereby establishes a recycling ad hoc committee. Whereas we're at a key point in the recycling program, need to determine the environmental impact of the program as it currently exists. And whereas we need to compare our current model to the different models that we could adopt. And whereas it is important to do a cost-benefit analysis, including the financial and environmental costs that are avoided by the production of post-recycled consumer goods. And whereas we know there are increased recycling costs and a portion of previously recycled materials are going to landfills and incinerators. And whereas we need to adapt to a changing marketplace and share strategies on how other municipalities have responded to these new changes or challenges. And whereas the goal of developing an appropriate and cost-effective recycling program can be furthered by the creation of the ad hoc committee on recycling that will meet for a period of 12 months. And whereas the ad hoc committee will work with city staff to develop an educational plan for the community, which includes a current recycling practice or any adopted changes. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council and the City of Auburn, of the City of Auburn, that the City Council supports a concept of a recycling ad hoc committee with a mission, purpose, and structure to be approved by the City Council. So this is step one. Resolves put forth the process for staff with some council's input to develop the rules, very similar to what we did with Age Friendly, and then back to the council for final approval or not approval. So there we go. That's the current environment that we're in right now. Council?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor?
I'd like to refer to the 12-month period. Is it, for me, I would think that we could get this done in 6 months rather than wait 12 months, since there's so much information available, and we have a lot of really qualified people to assist, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more. I would like to suggest that we amend that particular one to 6 months instead of 12.
We can have a motion on the floor to amend,
so
if
then
you
I'll
could
move.
restate that. But, and before, so we'll hold that. Councilor Walker, you had a comment?
Yes, I do. I agree with the 6 months, more because shortly after that, we're going to have a re-election of people here, and I would rather that we solve this, and if we can't, then we'll let it go on to the new elected people that are going to be in office.
6 months will expire, probably our last meeting, or second to last meeting of this current council before the new council is sworn in. Councilor Rosania?
Mr. Mayor, I don't think there's a reason to limit it to 6 months. I think one of the reasons not to limit it to 6 months is that Mr. Boss offered some really good resources through Bates College to be able to really look into this and do research, and they wouldn't be able to start that till September and could continue it throughout the year if that was necessary. I don't know why we would need to rush it. It's a pretty complex thing that we're talking about, and give it a year.
Well, and I go back a little bit, and if I could, it's complex, but every single municipality in the country is dealing with this right now. There's a lot of, and I should be with 100 other mayors from around the country today, but there's a lot of tornadoes in the Midwest, and that didn't work out so well for me. But this is a topic of that conversation. I think that, to the point of almost exactly what we did with the marijuana ordinance and the ad hoc committee there, we gave it a period of time. Then written into the resolution, the final resolution, was an extension if so approved by the council. I think that might adjust or take care of Councilor Walker's suggestion where if they needed more time in the new council and they didn't have a solution there. The nice thing about this, unlike marijuana, we're not starting from scratch. We're not the first municipality in Maine, nor are we one of the first municipalities of the country. Marijuana, we were, and we still are, a trendsetter, if you would. So there's a lot of crowdsourcing that can go on there as well. So again, just to put it in perspective, a year can happen, 6 months with an extension for 6 months, if so decided, I think might be a fair compromise. Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The group could also come back with some sort of recommendations that could be implemented in 3 months. And then as they go, they could offer more for the council to put into place. So I'm comfortable with the 6 months because they can report back in 3 months and say, hey, we figured this campaign to get the word out. We've got this type of information for how we're going to change it, put that in place. If we want to, which I do, put more money in our budget for those green receptacles or change the color to make them stand out so people will know this is the color, this is the new recyclable, this is the image. And it also give time for businesses if they want to jump on the bandwagon to have their little logo put on those buckets.
Any other comment? Councilor
Mayor, I personally would like to see it 12 months and maybe even 18 months as a drop-dead end date. However, I would like to maybe a charge, as it was mentioned by one of the people in open session, that we have a charge that says by 6 months you will have this done, and then have it continue, because the implementation is also going to be important. We found that not only is there an issue with the recycling material, its value, with the cost of handling it, but the education of the public. And then the implementation, because if we get done with this and we're still at 8%, that's not going to be a good thing. So I would think the committee would also help in the implementation, education to get it rolling, which the best time for that would be after the winter is over and we're into springtime and everybody's starting to think about that, especially with doing some clean outs and that sort of thing. So I'm in favor of a longer committee, but have the council give them a charge that within 6 months they will have a plan of sorts, and then within 6 months they'll have it implemented or something like that. I'm not too afraid of the next council. I don't think the next council will have a problem with the committee and what they're doing. I'd like to get it done as fast as possible, but I also know that I think 6 months, because considering what the problem is, it's very complicated.
Yeah, but we're not the only ones working it.
That's right, we're not.
I mean, there's no offense to Bates College, but there's people in every other university in the country focusing on this as well.
But as I said before, currently, if we found a way to get everybody to recycle and we got to 50%, it costs us $500,000. If we got everybody to recycle, it'd be over $1 million a year the city would pay for recycling. So at the current, what we're doing right now and how it's working is not sustainable for that reason. We need to find answers that are going to be, whether it be, better sorting and better quality recycling, so we get more earnbacks from the people who buy the recycling. But that's a little bit of a process that may take longer than 2 or 3 months. I think the problem is very complicated to get
I don't think we're going to be able to change Chinese industry's mind.
Again, I mean, that's a real serious issue. If it's going to cost us $1 million a year to have a complete recycling program, then we got to talk about that. But if we can do it so that it makes sense financially. And maybe a revenue stream of some sort. I don't know. Maybe that's something the committee can work on too. But there's a lot to this than just simply getting more people to recycle.
Any other comments? Councillor Hayes.
Yes, whatever the period of time is, I think it needs to be such that we have information. I mean, we've got to make a decision this year as far as budgeting, but certainly by the time we get into budget next year, we need to have feedback from such a committee.
Probably go a little further feedback and then actually some real-world implementation to see if we can infer any success before our budget, hence the time to that point. And again, I don't know what that could be. I mean, we've been doing recycling for, Councillor Walker, we've been recycling now for how many years?
Long time.
Okay, that many. It's been a long, since 2007, at least, if not before. Councillor Young, you remember?
No, I don't, but I have a question.
Councillor Young,
If
hold
we-
on that same thought. We've been doing this single for recycling for this. We haven't seen an increase in our adoption rate as a community. And that concerns me. That's an outlier that keeps kind of chewing at the back of my head. But Councillor Young?
My question is, if we're thinking of putting a time limit on here, shouldn't we have an amendment to the motion?
We're debating that. We'd have to have that amendment come
Well,
forth.
It already has a 12-month.
It has a 12-month right now, so it is talked about.
Discussing right now.
We can discuss if someone does want to put forth that amendment, then that can happen, but it is in here as a timeline.
I'll make an amendment to make it 6 months.
So I've got a motion to
Finish
amend.
discussion, though?
We will.
Make a motion in a second.
We have a motion. We have a motion by Councillor Young to amend the current resolution to state a 6-month time frame.
Months.
That's extendable for another 6 month upon council
Yes.
approval?
I'll make that part of my motion.
6 month with a 6-month renewal.
I'll second
Second.
I got a second from Councillor Gary. And now we can have some internal discussion on this?
The original resolve is for 12 months, so that was based on some thinking that was done about this. Whether there's a lot of research being done around the country, this is a complex issue. Even deciding to change behavior is extremely difficult. So the idea of putting a 6 months on it, why not just leave it at 12 months and we can ask them, as Councillor Titus said, at 6 months, we'd like to hear what they're doing. At 8 months, at 10 months, we can get reports. But instead of shortening the time, that makes people think this is a 6-month thing that we're trying to do. It's actually probably a 6-year thing. So I just feel that we're making a statement of saying, okay, we think you can get this in 6 months. Yes, you can move it forward and do 12 months if you want, but I'd rather have it be 12 months and we hear from them at 6 months, and so that we don't have to go through the process of extending it.
Anyway, I will say that there is a really logical kind of nicety in government, which you don't want to leave hanging issues for the next council unless it's absolutely necessary. But first making the attempt to solve issues and not letting the next council and mayor adopt those issues unless it's been looked at in 6 months as a sunset, if you would, with the option of renewal, I think is fair to the next council. I know we would have appreciated that on a couple issues that we inherited. So I think it's a fairness thing. I think it accomplishes a 12-month, but it also sends a message that we want to try to accomplish these things and keep that legacy knowledge that we're gaining over this period, this year actually, and applying that to a final solution.
I'd rather not kick the tin can down the road.
No pun intended on the tin can.
Oh, yeah, I intended it.
There was pun intended? Very nice, nice. Okay, so we have a motion to amend the resolution. All those in favor? Okay, the motion to amend oppose? Abstain? None being. The motion to amend the resolution passed by a vote of 5-2.
Mr. Mayor, we're going to have a little bit of a concern there too, because by the time we get this committee done, if we follow council procedure, advertise it, vote on members and all that, that could take another month or two anyway. We're not going to be able to start this tomorrow.
Good.
So it's going to take us another month or two to get,
That's right, yeah, he's right.
Well, we got to advertise it, have people apply for the position, and then we have to have the committee vote on them, and then we have to vote on the committee. So that could be a while, but just keep that in mind. It may not be within 6 months. Might start in July instead of June.
Okay, I think at this point, I think it's a good idea to direct the city council, for the city council to direct the city staff, through the city manager, to start compiling all data from all sources now, to truncate that data collection period, at least as much as possible, and I think that's going to help with this process. Also, encourage the city clerk's office as well as the appointment board to look at their schedule, look at announcing this, and start meeting. I think the idea would be to get this well underway and approved in our last meeting in the month of June. I think that's a fair enough time frame to get this going. I think we already have 2 volunteers right here, so. Okay, is there any other comment on this? We still have the resolve question out there. We have amended it, the amended resolve. Is there any other conversation, debate, or amendments? No? None being, then I'm going to ask for a vote on this. Roll call is not needed, correct? On the resolve? No. Okay, all those in favor of the amended resolve 06-05202019, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstained? None being? The resolve passes by a vote of 6 to 1. Okay. Okay, next, we have an order to adopt the 5-year capital improvement plan. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion from Councillor Gary and a second from Councillor Fournier. I'm going to open this up to public comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak about the city's 5-year capital improvement plan? None being? I'm going to bring it back to the council. Is there any debate on this, folks? Again, this is a 5-year plan that's required for us to review and approve, but it is tentative, and it doesn't bind us to any purchases beyond year 1.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Titus.
I did have one comment that I wanted to make, and I know this doesn't bind us, but it does send a message, and it also is kind of planning. And it bothers me in looking at the 5-year plan that we have injected $500,000 into the new village plan, which we're not going to do in 20. But then we've taken the Great Falls Plaza redevelopment and plugged in $500,000 for the next 4 years, every year, 5 years. And again, it's a placeholder. I know that we're not binded by it, but I think that was kind of a surprise for me to see that in the 5-year plan, $500,000 each year. And I don't feel comfortable having that in there, at that, especially at that level, but I don't know if anybody else has a concern about that.
Mr. Manager?
I appreciate the question from Councilor Titus. This has been addressed previously. I think the reason for that is to have, in fact, a placeholder that can be reviewed going forward by future councilors. And the idea is to try and redevelop Great Falls Plaza and to have the funding in place. The developer we know is interested in trying to do something in a public-private partnership with the city. And I think it's a visionary approach. I also think it gives the city an opportunity to be creative and adaptive and flexible and entrepreneurial in terms of what we're doing. I stand by it, but I also appreciate the question and the concern.
Councillor?
I would support the approach. I guess what I'd be looking for each year is more be more specific as to things that we recognize that have to be done on the public side in order to encourage private investment. So I guess, and I think earlier on from discussions, I guess it was without that I was having difficulty accepting it.
Understood.
Well, again, my concern is that we're sending a message that we're looking to spend that kind of money, even though we may not year over year. And I'm a little bit concerned that it needs to be there if there's no other.
I'd rather have it there than not, and then all of a sudden pop it in year 3.
Well, you can pop it in. If there's a plan that comes up and it's clear what's going to happen, that can go in a skinny minute.
There's something to be said about keeping it in there, though, now, and looking at that, and that kind of holds that money and holds that levels down to more familiar, because if it's taken away, it could be, if it's filled with something else, and then something else is
I'll tell you
down.
what I will do. I'll just so that we don't talk about this too much, I just have a strong feeling. I'll make a motion that we strike that 500,000 every year in that area and see if I get a second.
Yeah.
Second?
We have a second? Now we can discuss it?
We can discuss it.
And if there's,
Hold on. Can we just run through some protocols here, Councilor Titus? I have a motion to amend the 5-year CIP from Councilor Titus, striking the $500,000 annual reserve account for Great Falls plan development. I have a second from Councilor Fournier. Now we'll have some discussion.
Well, I guess
Councilor Hayes?
just a quick comment. I think already we have it in for 500, but I think we've already, from the manager, reduced it to 200. So I think we have the flexibility every year to, again, look at what we really specifically might want to do. So it can be adjusted. And I think each year we're going to have to look at the full budget and see what we can afford. And we may well reduce it out the next 5 years back to 200 or whatever it may be.
Was there any other comment? Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too share the good Councilor Titus's concern about the CIP, and I'm not going to be supporting it at this point.
Any other questions on this motion to amend? This is, again, a motion to amend, specifically on the 500,000 annual. Councilor, yeah, of course you can, Mr. Manager.
I've been involved in local government now for over 30 years. Worked for the city of Lewiston, as I think all of you know, for about 10 years. Was the assistant city administrator there. County manager for Cumberland County government for about 20 years. Now going on 3 years here, there are not a lot of opportunities for the city of Auburn to move forward, to grow, and to develop. The thinking that has gone into the Great Falls Plaza in the past with the ADAPT plan and other strategic thoughts, I think have been very, very well thought out. My thought in terms of recommending that we have this placeholder is this is an opportunity that presents itself, and there aren't very many of those. We want to try and develop the downtown. What I would say to the council is if you are interested in trying to develop the downtown, if you see the future of Auburn as being part of the development and growth that would take place in the downtown, if you're interested in seeing a growth in non-tax revenue, if you're interested in seeing businesses potentially locate in the Great Falls Plaza and growth and development, then I think this is a strategy for the city to be able to follow that will enable us to do that. The developer has an outstanding reputation, somebody that we know who's had an impact in Lewiston and Auburn, and is willing to be a partner with the city. I would hope that the council would consider that and think about that. And I do appreciate the concerns, but again, I don't think we have very many opportunities to be able to move the city forward. I think this is one of them. Thank you.
Comment? Councilor Hayes?
And I guess, too, as we move forward in future years, hopefully we'll have some TIF revenues that could offset what we might have to bond for. I would think that
1,000 different possibilities, really.
Yeah, so I think that, well, TIF particularly for economic development, that's what TIFs are for. So hopefully we could have some of those monies available to go towards this as well, or to...
Councilor Young?
This point, we're just agreeing this is the amount of money we might borrow, but this is not the authorization for...
No, this is just the 5-year plan. It's just a wish list.
I just want everybody out there to understand that the city council is not voting tonight on this particular question. It's just a placeholder.
Correct.
It's a visionary plan, if you would. I mean, this is your capital improvement, potential capital improvement plan for the next 5 years. It sends a lot of messages, actually, and I'm very concerned that with this one specifically, we're sending a message saying that we don't want to commit to infrastructure improvements in our downtown that will spur market rate development. And that's really what it boils down to. That's concerning.
Yeah, well, Mr. Mayor, I just want to say that's not my plan, but my feeling is if we don't know what was going on and we put a placeholder like that in, we're saying whatever happens, happens, and we've started the ball rolling. There's no reason year over year this can be brought up to 700,000 if there's a good plan. And the council can change that and work with it. But as part of a 5-year plan, it's just saying generically, $2.5 million in the next 5 years we're prepared to put in there. And without any ideas, at this point, I'd say, yeah, maybe when we do have those plans, or we do have some ideas, this council should act on them appropriately. I'm just a little bit concerned about making that commitment, so to speak, not necessarily a commitment, but ahead of time, that's all.
Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The ADAPT plan was an okay or a good plan when it was initiated. But to date, a lot of it has been put on mothballs. A lot of other different plans have come up. I'm not trying to mess up the revitalization of what was affectionately called Platt's Field down by the Auburn Esplanade. We should be moving it forward and coming up with a different plan and not just using the ADAPT plan as a scapegoat to move this project forward. From what is being told, it sounds like a very good project.
So I just have to clarify, when we have discussions about, this is a motion specifically about infrastructure, but it cannot cross the line into what might have been discussed during executive session, okay? So I just want to put that out there as a cautionary note.
I'm just talking about the ADAPT plan and planning and economic development and not exactly what's happening, anything that we've talked about. I'm for developing and revitalizing the downtown. We need to bring more people to it to revitalize the city. I understand that. I just don't totally agree with a lot of the stuff that's moving forward, and that is why I've got concerns about the amount of monies that we're placing in the capital CIP with all the other projects that are coming on the plate that we haven't discussed yet that are going to be sandwiched into this. I support the good Titus's motion. I'm going to be voting for the amendment, but I'm not going to be voting the final vote for the CIP.
I'd like to move the question, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, we're going to move this question to a vote at this point. All those in favor of amending and basically removing the placeholder, non-binding placeholder, $500,000 from the 5-year CIP plan, please raise your hand. 2, 3. All those opposed? Motion abstain? That's me.
Issue.
The mayor votes to oppose the amendment to the motion. The amendment fails.
Very good. Thank you for your opportunity, Mr. Mayor, to speak.
We still have a motion on the floor over the 5-year CIP. Is there any other questions? None? Okay. We're going to bring this to a vote. I'm going to ask the city clerk to do a roll call vote.
Can you read the...
I'm sorry?
Can you read what we're voting on? Give us the language, please.
Hold on one second.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we pass order number 68-052-02019.
Which is a 5-year capital improvement
Adopting a 5-year capital improvement plan, which is not an obligation, just simply a passing of the plan.
And the manager's
We already had a motion and second on that.
Yeah, she just read it again so that we...
It's a conceptual plan for the city's long-term capital improvement program, which is subject to change due to changing circumstances. So, okay.
Counselor Hayes?
Yes.
Counselor Titus?
Yes.
Counselor Fournier?
No.
Counselor Walker?
No.
Counselor Young?
Yes.
Counselor Gary?
No.
Counselor Lasagna?
Yes.
4 or 5, do we need?
4.
We need 4?
Yep.
Okay, the 5-year CIP plan.
5 on the actual CIP, but only 4.
Okay, so the motion passes 4-3. Next, we have an order to approve the request to waive the business licensing fee for the Auburn PAL Center. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
I have a motion from Councilor Gary and a second from Councilor Hayes. Open this up to the public for comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the council. Is there any member of the council that doesn't like kids? No? Okay. Any member of the council that would like to speak about waiving the business license for the Auburn PAL Center? No? Okay, I'm going to ask for a vote by show of hands. All those in favor of waiving the licensing fee, business licensing fee for the PAL Center? Opposed, abstained, none being, the motion carries 7-0. Next, we have an order authorizing the city manager to sign the Auburn-Lewiston Consortium Mutual Cooperation Agreement that will extend the consortium between the city of Auburn and the city of Lewiston under the Home Investment Partnership Program for a 3-year period. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I got a motion from Councilor Zani. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilor Gary. I'll open this up to the public for comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? None being, I'm going to bring this back just to the city manager for clarification, because I don't want to mix up the words, because this is a federally binding order, if I remember correctly.
Correct, and it is really, it's a formality.
We have to be in a consortium in order to receive the home funds from the federal government as part of, or similar to CDBG. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? None being? The order passes 7-0. Okay, next, we have an order authorizing marijuana businesses to operate in the city of Auburn in accordance with applicable state and local laws, ordinances, and regulations. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Titus and a second from Councilor Walker. Before I open this up to the public for comment, I'd like to have the Assistant City Manager, Mr. Kroll, give us just a quick update on what exactly this means. And this is the first of many ordinances, if anyone here from the public's going to speak on. So there's going to be about 4 or 5 after this, but Phil, if you could.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Start off with just, again, thanking the council reps that were on the work group, as well as the many citizen participation that was involved in the crafting of this ordinance. One thing that came out late last week, and I think it's over the last couple of weeks it's been surfacing, but the rules from the state, we do have a draft of those rules. I've been able to go through, taking a look at those. There's nothing in the rules that are coming out that conflicts with our ordinance. So the work that was done by our work group means that there'll be no necessary changes as of what we're seeing right now. There'll be a public hearing later this week in Portland, I believe they mentioned, for the state rule change, and we'll continue monitoring that to see if there's anything further that comes from that. One thing that I will be advocating for is what we have in our ordinance as far as adult use and medical marijuana is relating to training. Even though the rules are stating that there'll be funding set aside, a portion of the funding for sales tax that's being received by the state will be set aside for education and awareness. Our work group committee, especially with the assistance of Corey Brown, who's in the audience from Healthy Androscoggin, assisted us in creating some language regarding training for marijuana businesses. It's the last section within our ordinance. We'll be advocating that the state includes that in their rules. I think it's important. Our rules, basically, our ordinance states that if adopted by the state, then our businesses must comply with that. And so we'll be advocating for that. If not, that might be something that we want to take a look at. If you look at the other states that have certainly progressed quite a bit in the marijuana ordinances, Colorado, California, there is online training that's available for those businesses. I think Maine should have the same, and that way there it's a great educational tool for local businesses. As the mayor mentioned, the adult use and medical marijuana business ordinance will be one of the sections that you will adopt, and then we have multiple current ordinances as far as zoning that will need to be amended, as well as the odor ordinance. And so you've seen all those, we've worked through all those. And we'll certainly, this is first reading, so as we hear any comments, if there's anything that needs to be adjusted, we can certainly do before the second reading. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your update. I'm going to open this up to public comment. We do have 8 ordinances that we have to go through tonight. So if you do have comments, let's try to make sure the comments are applicable to the ordinance number in which it falls. That way we can all stay on track. It's pretty hefty rowing on this one. So,
Mr. Mayor, just one question. For point of clarification, is this the opt-in part?
This is opt-in.
This has nothing to do with the ordinance. This has to do with the opt-in or opt-out. The next one is the beginning of the ordinances, correct?
That's correct.
The next order. Okay.
Yes,
So this is just the opt-in.
This is just the opt-in, so we can
Right.
go
Great.
on with the
Just
ordinance.
for clarification, people know what it
Is
is.
there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this? Oops.
We can pass it.
Excuse me. Thank you. Yeah, just hand it to Phil, please.
I'm not sure if I have enough copies for all of you guys. Good evening, everybody. My name is John Engler, and I live on Cushman Place. I'm also the owner of High Sale Cannabis, and I own a grow on Riverside Drive. Basically just wanted to come out and speak in favor of, I wrote at the top of my paper, the draft ordinance, although at this point it's really not the draft, it's the ordinance, right? I've been involved with this process for pretty much a year now. When I first met Phil, I got to participate in some of the task force meetings last year, and I've also been giving feedback over the last months. And I have brought a lot of negative feedback, so thank you very much for listening to us. I really, really appreciate Phil, the task force, and the city in general for making a lot of very substantive changes from the draft that was originally proposed in December. I think that this version of the ordinance is going to work out much better for the city, as well as this nascent industry that's started to build itself up here. Effectively, I do think that while there are still some aspects of this ordinance that I don't personally agree with, I think that this is a good compromise and that it'll work well for the community. It'll help the small businesses that have grown out of the medical marijuana program continue to grow and thrive, hopefully, while protecting patient access to cannabis medicine. So I do have 2 questions about this. One is about the bars on the windows. I think there is still a requirement that we put bars on all the windows. And given all the other security requirements with the systems and the locks and the safes and surveillance, I'm wondering if we really have to put bars on the windows. I also want to point out that the licensing fees still are pretty high compared to what's being proposed in other municipalities or adopted in other municipalities. So I know that Auburn doesn't want this to be a net cost, so I understand that, but I do want to put that out there and also ask what the city's plan is if there is a revenue surplus that comes from this program. So in closing, I'd like to recommend that the City Council maintain communication with cannabis business operators over the next few years as this sector operates in a rapidly shifting regulatory environment, and changes at the state and federal level could necessitate amendment to the ordinance in the future. Thanks very much, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Engler. Is there any other comments from the public about the opt-in motion that's on the floor? Now, bring it back to the council. Council, any questions, comments? Again, this is just about opting into the state, per state regulations. No? Okay, I'd like to bring this to a vote then.
It's an order, right?
Excuse me, all in favor of Order 71-0520, 2019, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstain? I'm being. The order carries 7-0.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we pass ordinance 03-0520-2019, adopting the proposed amendment to Chapter 14 Business License and Permits for an Adult Use and Medical Marijuana Business Ordinance. This is a public hearing, first reading.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Titus and a second from Councilor Walker. Open this up to the public for public comment. Please state your name and address, and if you could limit your comments to 35 minutes. 3.
Hello, Council. My name is Joel Pepin. I'm a current resident of Standish, but I was born and raised here in Auburn, grew up on Stevens Mill Road, EL class of '04. I am part owner with SJR Labs LLC. We're a medical marijuana processor operating at 1591 Hotel Road. I would just like to commend the work of the committee, Phil and Eric Cousins. I wasn't on the committee to start, but as the process was unfolding, it was very transparent. I've sort of been working in different municipalities, and the responsiveness from Eric and the committee with some of the concerns we had as an operator were prompt, and it just felt like they were being, very fair and professional in their approach. Personally, I do think it's a strong ordinance for the community, being from here, and then also as a business owner. So I would ask you to pass it as written. I think the fees are reasonable for businesses in town, so I don't have a major concern, at least from a processing standpoint. And again, I just would ask you to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. You can move back to Auburn if you'd like. Just saying that. Thank you. Anybody else from the public would like to comment? I want to bring it back to the council. Council, questions, comments? None being, I'm going to ask for a vote. All those in favor of passing the order 0305202019, please raise your hand.
This requires a roll call vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's an ordinance.
Okay.
Sue?
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Counselor Titus.
Yes.
Counselor Fournier.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Young.
Yes.
Counselor Gary.
Yes.
Counselor Lasagna. Yes.
Okay. The order passes by a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance passes.
Ordinance. Next, we have an ordinance 04-05202019, adopting the proposed amendment to Chapter 60, Section 60-145, Use Regulations, Permitted Use. This is a public hearing and first reading. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Lasagna and a second from Councilor Walker. Open this up to the public for public comment. Anybody from the public would like to speak? No? Very good. I'll bring it back to the council. Council, questions, comments? None being? Sue?
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Counselor Titus.
Yes.
Counselor Fournier.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Young.
Yes.
Counselor Gary.
Yes.
Counselor Lasagna. Yes.
The ordinance passes by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we pass ordinance 05-05202019, adopting the proposed amendment to Chapter 60, Section 60, 499A, Use Regulations, Permitted Uses, public hearing, first reading.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Titus and a second from Councilor Walker. Open this up to the public for public comment. Anybody from the public? No? Very good. Bring it back to the council. Council, questions, debate, conversation? None being? Ms. Clerk?
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Counselor Titus.
Yes.
Counselor Fournier.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Young.
Yes.
Counselor Gary.
Yes.
Counselor Lasagna. Yes.
The ordinance passes by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we pass ordinance 06-05202019, adopting the proposed amendment to Chapter 60, Section 65-525A, Use Regulations, Permitted Uses, public hearing, first reading.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Titus, a second from Councilor Walker. Public comment, anyone? None seeing that, I'll bring it back to the council. Any questions, debate, conversations about this? None? Ms. Clerk?
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Counselor Titus.
Yes.
Counselor Fournier.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Young.
Yes.
Counselor Gary.
Yes.
Counselor Lasagna. Yes.
The ordinance passes by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we pass ordinance 07-05202019, adopting the proposed amendment to Chapter 60, Section 60-554, Form-Based Code and Matrix, public hearing and first reading.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Titus and a second from Councilor Walker. Anybody from the public would like to speak on this? Yes.
I just have a question. Are you?
Could you please come to the table? Please, thank you.
Amendments that you're referring to are obviously in a text someplace else. They're not in this, what we're looking at here, these various ordinances, because there's no text of them at all.
Correct.
Okay.
So the ordinances themselves are, they're posted online. under our agendas, so we have them. The original, actually, in this case, there would be no original in most of them. But yes, they're all posted online, right underneath agendas, Phil?
So the way that the city clerk set it up with each, in the packet, under each ordinance is the section that's being voted on and any changes that were listed within that.
So if you go online under government, council, agendas, download that agenda packet, you'll have lots of pages.
Okay, it seems like they were not very controversial.
There's been a lot of work on this, and I think this is a good testament, frankly, to the work that's been done by the assistant city manager, staff, Mr. Cousins, councilors, and the public. It's just a really nice process, so we should probably emulate in the future.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, point of information, that this is only the first reading, so if anybody at home or anybody in the audience hadn't get a chance to read them, at our next council meeting, they can speak because they'll be given a chance.
Correct.
And also, Mr. Mayor, just in case I'm mistaken, but I believe a lot of these different ordinances we've had issues before where we have an ordinance, but then there's a conflicting language within the already current ordinance. So what we're trying to do is make sure that this new ordinance is interwoven with current ordinance. So you're not making a mistake in looking at section 60. You're not seeing something about marijuana that should be there. We've had that problem with animal control before, where it's in one section but not the other. Both are binding, but it becomes confusing unless they're somehow intertwined. So that's why there's so many different questions here rather than just passing the one ordinance. So.
Very good. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to comment? None being, I'll bring it back to the council. Any comments from the council? None being? Soup?
Councillor Hayes?
Yes.
Councillor Titus?
Yes.
Councillor Fournier?
Yes.
Councillor Walker?
Yes.
Councillor Young?
Yes.
Councillor Gary?
Yes.
Councillor Lasagna?
Yes.
The ordinance passes by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we pass ordinance 08-052022019, adopting the proposed amendment to Chapter 60, Section 60-578A, Use Regulation Permitted Uses, public hearing and first reading.
Second.
I have a motion for Councillor Titus and a second for Councillor Walker. I'll open this up to the public for public comment. Anybody from the public would like to comment on this ordinance? None being, I'll bring it back to the council. Council? Conversation? Debate? None being. Soup?
Councillor Hayes?
Yes.
Councillor Titus?
Yes.
Councillor Fournier?
Yes.
Councillor Walker?
Yes.
Councillor Young?
Yes.
Councillor Gary?
Yes.
Councillor Lasagna?
Yes.
The ordinance passes by a vote of 7-0.
And finally, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we pass ordinance 09-052022019, which is adopting the proposed amendment to Chapter 60, Section 60-1038, odors, public
Second.
hearing, first reading.
Second.
I have a motion for Councillor Titus, a second from Councillor Young. I'll open this up to the public for comment. None being, I'll bring it back to the council. Council, any discussion on the odor ordinance? None? I'll ask for a roll call vote on this.
Councillor Hayes?
Yes.
Councillor Titus?
Yes.
Councillor Fournier?
Yes.
Councillor Walker?
Yes.
Councillor Young?
Yes.
Councillor Gary?
Yes.
Councillor Lasagna?
Yes.
Ordinance passes 7-0. You're on a roll. Councillor Titus, you want to do a couple more?
I think we're at the end.
We're
That's
at
the
the
last
end.
one,
We're at the
yes.
end. Okay, thank you. We're done with the ordinances. We're now going to go on to reports. On to reports. I'd like to report that I flew to Baltimore, going to Kansas City this morning at 5:45. Landed in Baltimore, had a crab omelet, and all my flights to Kansas City were canceled, so I turned around and flew home. That's a major report for today. So be happy we have blizzards and not tornadoes. So that's the point to be learned. A lot of things happening and happened last week, I should say. In the city, we're obviously hearing a lot of comments about recycling. The budget process is ongoing. I will say that we have a couple important activities happening in Auburn and Lewiston this week. Tomorrow there'll be a press conference by Museum LA announcing and rolling out their heritage walking trail system, and there'll be some walking activities along with that. On Thursday there'll be the inaugural bus tour of the heritage trail within Lewiston and Auburn. Those routes and everything can be found on Museum LA's website, but we are getting folks that are coming from quite a substantial distance to participate in this trial run. So it's a lot of great things are happening on the tourism front here in Auburn. So other than that, it's go time, as we all know. So I'm going to turn this over to councilors. I'm going to start on my left. Councilor Young.
Yes, this, I guess it's Bates College weekend or something, because graduation's coming up. And the Night House will be open on Saturday. So all of you who haven't seen it for a while should go and see it. They planted an herb garden, I guess, last weekend. I don't know if anything's got grown up too much to be seen yet, but Edward Little's girls track team is doing quite well. Just won a couple of meets. They won. They had a River City rival meet with Bangor and Brewer and Lewiston, and they came in first place in that. The boys didn't do as well. Lewiston boys won the meet. We got KVAC coming up this week or next week, and then the states and New England's, and this track season will be over with. I've been following it, and the girls are doing quite well.
Very good. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, just like to report that yesterday at Walton School, we actually, I got to get it straight, United New Auburn Association, along with Walton School, Sherwood High School, did a May Day egg hunt with about 100 kids with their parents, and we had a lot of fun. We were there for 3 hours, had a great time, picked up a lot of eggs, put out a lot of eggs, and picked them up again. But it was a good time. A lot of candy was given out, a lot of prizes, and I want to put a big thank you out to the volunteers that were there. Next week, not tomorrow, but the following week, on Tuesday, we have a meeting at the United New Auburn Association at Rowley's Diner. And we also have a meeting at the 6th Street Congregational Church on Thursday evening at 6:30. I hope everybody can come to Rowley's there. We have a great speaker coming down, and he's a senator. So come on down and listen to our senator speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fournier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 5 dates to announce, and that's it. Wednesday, June 5th, 5 o'clock, Park Avenue School. There will be an honoring retirees who are retiring from the school department in Auburn. Friday, June 7th at 7 o'clock at the ELHS Gymnasium, the Adult Ed and Community Ed graduation will take place. Saturday, June 7th at 7 also, there is an ELHS graduation. So I don't know why I said Friday and Saturday. One of those dates is wrong. I'll have to look back. But anyway, I'm pretty sure about maybe Saturday is June 8th.
What time was the adult ed graduation again? I'm sorry.
Pardon me?
What time was the adult ed?
7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock.
Thank you.
And I think the Saturday is June 8th. Well, I don't know why I put down 7th. I guess I must be tired.
Yale's is 8th.
8th, yeah, that's the 8th, because I put down Saturday, and then okay, Tuesday, June 11th, just a reminder, we all been reminded many times, but this referendum questions, the school budget, and the new ELHS votes are taking place all day long. And finally, Wednesday, June 19th, 7 o'clock, will be our next school committee regular meeting, and I believe we take a break in July, I hope. That's it, thank you.
Councillor Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the privilege of touring Walton School last week, and I want to thank Principal Michael Davis. And by the way, just for the record, I love orange. One of the hallways was nice orange color, and I did like it. So the tour went very well, and we have a very good school there, and I enjoyed it. I did also attend the County Commissioners meeting last week. They had their second reading on whether or not to have more than one meeting per month, and it failed, so they will be relegated to 2 meetings a month. So that is good news to see that happen. And then besides that, I have the sewer trustees will meet tomorrow at 4 o'clock at the Auburn Water District office. And on Wednesday, the Auburn Water District trustees will meet at 4 o'clock at the same office. So I'll have more to report after those 2 meetings happen. That's it.
Okay, very good. Councillor Hayes.
It was a couple weeks ago, but there was the Citizen of the Year award to Peter Murphy, who really was or has been and continues to be a leader in the community. Of course, on the private side with Neocraft signs, and I think we heard that night how influential he's been in the importance of messaging. So I think he might be a key person that we should stay in touch with for the community. On the public side, and really it was a citizen not just for Auburn, but for the whole, the one community, because he served on the Chamber of Commerce, was president of that, ABDC the same, and the Growth Council. So I think for one that was involved in business, lives here in Auburn, his business was in Lewiston, but then in the area of economic development for the area, he was a true leader. The other, actually, I'm kind of excited with the not seeing just one plane parked out at the airport. I came by yesterday and there's actually 3 planes out there. And again, right now, it's primarily a maintenance center, and I know for the mayor, I'll have to report on what that means for employment and so forth, which I'll find out with our first meeting.
Correlation between number of planes and people working on them.
That's right.
It can only
It'd always be good.
I saw the Alaskan Airlines symbol. That was kind of impressive to see that in Auburn, Maine.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So
Alaskan
anyway,
Air.
I think, and it's good for I think for the cafe out there to go out and see what activity is actually there at the airport.
Councilor Lasagna?
Last Wednesday, the high school building committee met with Marshall Communications and heard about their plan for communicating to the public about the June 11th vote. If you are interested in writing a letter to the editor, you can contact Adam Hansen at the high school and go through him for that. And if you're interested in donating funds for pencils or anything like that, you can also talk to Adam Hansen. This Wednesday at 5:30 will be the first meeting of the group to develop an ordinance for an ag advisory committee. 5:30 here, I'm not sure where, Peter. 5:30 in the community room. So this group will be meeting and be talking about working on an ordinance that would create the ag advisory committee or board. I'm not sure what we're calling it yet.
Okay. We're going to go on to the city manager report. Mr. Creighton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor has indicated, the FY20 budget process is still underway. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel, I think. It's coming. Also, I just want to give an update regarding the legislature. I was at a State Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors meeting on Friday and heard some good news from the business people who were attending that meeting regarding the issue that municipalities have been facing over the last several years since 2010 with a shift in municipal revenue sharing from municipalities to the state. In Auburn's case, there's been $18.3 million that has been shifted in municipal revenue sharing to the state. Just imagine what we've been able to do with that $18.3 million. And there seemed to be some certainly better understanding of some of the challenges that we're facing as municipalities, particularly service center communities like Auburn. And I heard some encouraging news about support in the legislature for increasing the funding. And lastly, Phil, I've been asking you to give an update on the strategic plan. We're getting to the end of the process with the strategic plan. I want to give you kudos for your leadership on that and quarterbacking that process. It's been a team effort. There have been a lot of staff who have been involved and a lot of citizens from the community and councilors, and the mayor has participated. We are getting to a closure point, but is anything you want to add regarding that?
I would just say I think the last strategic planning committee really set the course on what takes place next in developing a report. We're not going to rush it. We think it's important to draft that out, make sure we do it right the first time. So we'll be working on that, and you'll be seeing a report in the near future.
I don't think it's the end of the process.
What did Churchill say? The beginning or the end of the beginning? I don't know.
The implementation comes next. You're exactly right, Councilor.
Very Very good, thank you. We're going to move on to finance report at this time.
So we are 10 months through the fiscal year. Currently, our revenues are at 92.72%. Property taxes are at 97.12%. The second half was due March 15th. Courtesy letters were sent out to people who had not paid in April, and the 30-day lien process has started in this month, May. Liens will be filed in June. Excise tax continues to outpace itself. And on the expenditure side, most of the departments are right where they should be. Those departments that aren't, we've had discussions mostly on those, like the debt service, those types of things, which are, paid up front. But the operating departments are pretty much where they belong. If anybody has questions, I would like to tell you too that we started receiving payments from the collection agency. We received about $10,000 since, which was money that we would not have collected on the EMS.
Oh, very good, thank you.
We've been writing them off, but those that get written off get sent to the collection agency, and then, they do what they can to, so we've collected in the last 3 months about $10,000 that we wouldn't have had. So that goes directly to revenue.
Very good, thank you for that.
Yeah, that's
Do
good.
you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Anya?
The collection agency, I hope it's a humane one.
Is there such a thing?
I just know there can be really
I'd love them to call
terrible
me that.
ones for, you don't need to answer, I just hope that,
I believe so. They actually are affiliated with Central Maine Healthcare. So, and if, we do some write-offs ourselves as well, if people have letters from the hospitals that they get free care, that type of thing, so we do that.
ACS,
thank you.
Yes.
not humane.
Oh, no.
Not humane?
No. No, they almost, never mind, I'll tell you this, sidebar conversation.
That's not a joke.
No, they could, please, call me again, it's been a couple of years. Any other questions for Jill? I have one. Jill, do you think, I'm seeing a little trend here, and again, we only go through this, monthly or so, but are you seeing any potential of increasing projections for fiscal year 20 with regards to line items, revenue line items, i.e. excise tax seems to be significant trend up? I'm not sure if that's just by timing. When would you make that decision?
It's already, I did increase it some. My concern is as interest rates go up, and people will be buying less new cars. So I'm fairly conservative where that is, and I have raised it every year, but we have to be careful because if we do too much, then we could have a big hole.
So there's probably a direct correlation, obviously, between interest rates and the number of new cars, which obviously have a higher
Which is the largest amount of
Right.
excise.
The
And as
depreciation
cars
schedule's
age, it
fairly-
goes down every year for 6 years.
Right.
And I usually try to average the last 5 to 10 years.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to move ahead with accepting a motion to accept and place on file the April 2019 monthly finance report.
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilor Fournier and a second from Councilor Hayes. Excuse me. Show of hands. All those in favor of accepting the report? Opposed? Abstained? None being. Report's accepted by a vote of 7-0. Open session, last vote of the night. Any members of the public are invited to speak on any topic that is not in tonight's agenda. Please say your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody that would like to speak? Okay. None being, I will close this open session. Now, wow, 8:35, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilor Fournier. Do I have a second?
Nobody.
Second?
Don't scare me. Like that. There's a second from Councilor Titus. All in favor by a voice vote of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? The ayes have it. Stand adjourned.